and welcome. It is fantastic to have you here. Today I have a nearly 110-year-old trombone to show you. This is a Besson and Co Prototype trombone, a G-bass trombone with the serial number 9810, which puts its date of manufacture at before 1912. So it's about, this was rocking into the world about the same time as the Titanic was doing its little thing. And it is a very interesting instrument because it has a number of characteristics that we just simply do not see these days. But the first thing I'm going to show you is the case, because the case in itself is also very fascinating. And here it is. It is the sleeve of peeled cow. It is very thin. The latch is broken. We have a mouthpiece bag up here that's got this weird sort of toggle thing on it. But what's very interesting is that when you put your trombone into the case, you put it into its two halves, the slide and the bell section, and you just throw them down into this bag, and that is how it's transported. If I tip this up, you might be able to see that there is a divider, a fabric divider halfway down here. It's just a sheet of, just a little piece of fabric, and that's it. And then there's this that just goes over the top. That's it. That's all there is to protect the well-being of this instrument. And so given that, and given the fact that this instrument's over 110 years old, the fact that it is in as good condition as it is simply remarkable. There are no major dints to speak of. The finish is still very good, and the slide functions brilliantly. So let's take a look at this instrument. Starting at the top, you'll notice that this standing on the ground is substantially longer than a normal trombone because it is in the key of G. Starting at the top, we've got the main tuning slide here, which I haven't managed to unseize yet. There are no counterweights whatsoever, and there are only these two braces, something that we just simply do not see anymore. Then moving down, we have this piece of fabric here that has been sewn in place to just sort of protect the clothing of whatever you're wearing. We've got a slide, a bell brace here, and then the bell, which is a very small bell. It's about 8 inches or so. In fact, it's probably less than 8 inches, 7.5 or so. And because of the length between the end of the bell and this brace, when you're playing it, this tends to wiggle around quite a lot. It's quite unconcerting. Next thing to note, there is no lock between the bell section and the slide section. You just simply put it on and just sort of tighten it. It's an interference tapered fit, and then you just hold it in place. That's all there is to prevent, to keep the two parts together, which is a little bit disconcerting, but you know, there you are. Moving on to the slide section, the slide also doesn't have a slide lock. You just hold it in place there with your little finger. The slide has got a handle on it, and if I come up close, we will see the way that this slide handles the differences in position. So that's very interesting, because the handle, of course, on a trombone needs a very wide range of movement to be able to do its job. The handle itself is made out of wood, and then we have the rest of the slide. There's your standard arrangement at the other end, nothing too much to speak of there. The slide itself would have been silver plated probably at some stage, but it is now just raw brass. It is a raw brass finish, and then we have a distinct step up to whatever metal the stockings are made out of. The slide is dual bore, meaning this tube is much thinner than this tube, which means you can't put the slide on the wrong way because it just simply doesn't fit. And the last thing to mention about the slide is that it is incredibly loose. The quality of the seal between the stockings and the outer slide is very poor. And that may have something to do with the fact that I think all of the original silver plating is worn off, or it just may be a characteristic of trombones from back then. I just simply don't know. But it functions brilliantly. But even though the slide works very well and is relatively very quiet, it's not a trombone that you can play in a vigorous manner because the whole thing has a very small bore. This is a small bore mouthpiece, even though it is specifically designed for a G trombone. It is a very small bore mouthpiece, and that gives the instrument a big lack of stability. It's when you're playing it and you're sort of moving around, the whole thing wobbles a bit disconcertingly, and when you're using the extra leverage of the handle on the slide, then it makes it just even that little bit more precarious about when you play it. You sort of are aware that you're holding something that is, or at least feels, very fragile. Now, I've done a video on the G-bass trombone before, so the history of the instrument, why we have them or why we had them, etc. That's been explored a little bit in the past in an instrument that was only 70 years old, and you can find that video by clicking up in the link here or seeing the description down below. But I'll play just a couple of notes on this and give you guys an idea of what it sounds like. Let me know. I'll be very interested if you have ever seen a G-bass trombone before, and for anyone who's actually had the opportunity to play one of these, I'll be very interested to hear from you. So please write a note in the comments below and just tell me if you've got any experience with these instruments and what you think of them if you do. Thanks very much for watching.